Hey there, y'all. I'm Bobby. This is Steph. We are Between Two Teeth.
What's
and
up?
We have a very special guest today.
Very special
who
guest.
Do we have here, Steph?
This is Dr. Brett Kessler. He is the, now correct me if I'm wrong, ADA 14th District Trustee.
Way of running.
I love what you
God,
said
awesome.
there. You know, so many times myself, I get trapped up in the destination versus the journey. That's where actually you've been good. Some of the journeys that we've taken, whether it's the Italy motorcycle ride or out in California, you're just like, let's see where we're going to go.
That's a direct byproduct of being so goals focused to a fault. I feel like I've lived an entire life from the age of 13 to 22. And it's insane. When I was in college, they would do body fat measurements. I weighed under 100 pounds.
They didn't do that with me. They probably should have, but no.
My biggest struggle, like as I unpack, my addiction may not be alcohol necessarily, but my addiction has to do more with dopamine and attention.
Well, that's the way it is for so many people. That's the case.
Maybe so. I don't know. I grew up in a family. They are very cool, chilling. I was the oddball. I had to make the A's. I had to, and I'm not bragging. It's a drive. It's something you can't turn off. And if you've run a marathon and trained for it, you know this. It's something everyone says, well, if you run, what are you running away from?
So can you be balanced and do all this athletic activity, or does that take away from balance?
I haven't figured it out yet.
Because that's my excuse. I'm like, well, I'm going to try to be balanced, so I'm not going to do that. Because being a college runner like you were, you're trying to be a full-time student. You're a full-time athlete.
Yes. And so my mom was a functioning alcoholic, and it's tough. So I grew up around it. And in my family, there's absolutely a history of addiction. So what I'm trying to figure out is how do you know when to navigate, and you had your wife start to talk to you about, hey, why are you dragging us all over the country? I mean, do you listen to your friends, yourself? How do you know it's time?
It's not.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just
I usually will. I'll usually tell people, and I tell this to my boys. I'm like, if you are not failing, then I really don't think you're putting yourself out there enough. You have to expect a certain amount of failure. And maybe this is one thing that I do to cope with failure, is just know that, okay, there's an expectation that not everything is going to work. When we talked earlier about being the disruptive, what was the comment?
It's the constructive disruptor.
Constructive disruptor.
Yeah.
I think all three of us on this call are doing various things in different spheres of influences that we have, and we're pushing something that some people are going to pick up, but a lot of people are not going to pick up, and that's challenging.
Yes, I agree with that. One thing, just as we're talking here, that's coming to mind is when we look at, we've talked about who do you surround yourself with, get mentors, value-driven life, kind of understanding thyself, understanding your own patterns. What happens when your values are at ends with themselves? So, or in opposition almost. So I'm almost someone who, I love that work ethic, that drive. Let's be the best we can be. Let's be creative. Let's try to figure out new ways to do something. But at the same time, I want relationships, and I want to have safety, and I want to make sure that connection is in there.
You want to have it all.
I think I just want these two things, and I think they're at odds, because when I'm at my best competitively, I'm at my worst relationally.
Oh.
How do you balance it?
And you're an excellent competitor.
Sometimes not an excellent relationship person.
Yeah.
And I try to be. It's not the most straightforward thing.
Sports,
that's pretty cool. And that's the beautiful thing about mentorship.
So yeah, and a couple things on that stood out from your story, actually several. One of the things when we talk about, I know we're not going to solve membership with organized dentistry on this call, However, when you're talking about mentorship, just one piece of the puzzle, could it be maybe a failure of mentorship to the younger generation as far as discussing how important organized dentistry is?
Well,
Big time.
is that really, I think everyone agrees with that there's a challenge there.
Well,
But
if it's
how do
truly if it's truly a lack of mentorship, and I say that very carefully because I'm not
Well, you were
I'm not
very
I'm not
careful
trying to
with the
point
way.
fingers. But one of the cool things, the reason I'm in organized dentistry is because I had cool people who were in organized dentistry show up, like literally hand holding on lobby day, and I had mentors
Yeah.
help me.
So have we failed? I know when we talk about the generation gap, and I think that's the big buzz of how do we reach out to different generations? Have we failed you? Is that what I hear you say?
I say that very carefully. I don't want to
No,
be
don't
pointing
say it
elbows
carefully.
or pointing fingers, but
No.
it was a thought as you were telling your story. And I don't want to go too much into that because I know it's a very complicated
Well,
equation.
it's complicated, but that's one of the biggest issues, I think, at the American Dental Association. And they're trying to encourage mentorship. This is one of the blessings, I think, with social media, is that you get members and non-members who are on social media, and you're trying to push a message. You want to say, hey, here's the value. This is what's being done at Lobby Day. Here's some of the Massachusetts bills. But also, we're having fun. Like when we go to SmileCon, we had an absolute blast last year. I know we didn't quite make the morning run. I think you had promised Brett that you were going to.
You would have crushed me.
I literally,
there was too much going on.
I showed
at that
up.
Point.
We showed up late for the run. I got like a T-shirt that you're supposed to run the race to get the T-shirt.
I feel like a failure at life.
I stole it.
I did not show up for
yes,
that.
I'll be there. We got off track there. So that was a bit of a rant.
Did you have anything? I want to make sure I give you all
unpack any of that. Yeah, there, Brett.
We threw a lot of stuff. Any
we'll
thoughts
sit back
on
and we'll
that?
Listen.
So yeah, you guys were definitely missed, but it just wasn't our time. We'll run again next time. It'll be fine.
It will.
Perfect. Yeah,
we'll get it done. That's cool.
No, we're gonna let him talk.
Oh yes, please. I've got another thing on your story that I love.
So what do we do? I'm hearing
Membership.
We need to do a better job. We have to be better mentors.
Well, think about when you were in your first couple of years of practice as a dentist. Why did you join? Me personally, my first boss told me that if we are to remain a profession, everybody has to do something to contribute to that profession. And at very least, you have to be a member of the ADA. And I feel so strongly about that. I'm going to pay for your membership as an associate in my practice. I'm like, okay, cool.
That's awesome.
I wasn't active. I was nothing. Okay. In dental school, I made fun of the ASDA folks. Sorry, ASDA.
Listen, I was ASDA president. Brett, how do I end this?
Yeah. On that note,
where's the stop?
We'll
turn down his volume
until this
and then
one
he had
comment.
to say that. Okay, and look at you now.
But it wasn't of value to me. It really, I was different, and my head wasn't all straight. I was just getting good grades and I was fighting an addiction.
The question I was going to get at was rejection. And we're kind of talking about rejection issues.
Right.
Brett, how do you do with rejection?
It's tough. No one likes to be rejected.
Hurts every time.
I actually like to be rejected sometimes.
You actually lean into it. It's odd.
I do. I lean into rejection.
Yeah.
So, but it comes back to core values. Know who you are, know what you stand for. Just like when we didn't run together, obviously it's been on your mind because you brought it up. It hasn't been on mine.
It was
I
failure.
bug her about it all the time. I'm like, we've got I got a free T-shirt.
So I could have taken that as, wow, they don't like me. That's why they didn't come. Or wow, and what are they up to? So, it just wasn't our time. And, we're not going to connect with everyone on a way that I think we should connect, and that's part of just being human. We all have these like little movies going on in our head of the way the world should be. And sometimes they intersect, sometimes they don't. So
you've got such a healthy, balanced way of looking at it.
So
I'm hoping I
you,
can get there.
How do you deal with rejection?
Terrible. It
stop.
Hurts. It absolutely hurts. I don't know if empath is the right word. I think I'm speaking for myself, not all females, but for me, I feel as though I have a lot more emotion. I think emotional has a negative connotation because people, I think sometimes when they hear emotional, they think either loud outbursts or crying inconsolably. There can be a wide range to what emotional is. And for me, if I do have a lot of emotion, and the example of maybe myself not showing up to a run that you invited me on, that's a great
She's not
example.
a morning person.
So it's a great.
Can you run at noon? Is noon a possibility?
Okay, hold on, pause. I would
Or
get
like
up at 4
3 in the
a.m.
afternoon.
for years to run.
All right.
So I can get it.
College running
But
did
here's the deal.
wear
Here's
you
the
out.
deal. So for me, you have a healthy way of looking at it. And because you have a healthy way of looking at it, we still have a relationship. For me, what I have to get better at is if you had rejected me on my run.
She goes, I'm done.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
he doesn't like me.
My world is crumbling. Like, what did I say? Yeah.
Yeah, but and I don't want to portray myself as being. I get hurt. Trust me, I get rejected, and I feel very deeply things. And a lot of times, I do think way too much and stuff. But I can't sit in it. Okay, and it's part of my my recovery. They talk about resentments and addiction is one of the biggest drivers for relapse. And in resentments, if you can look at the root of the word resentment, sentir, to feel, refeel. Okay, so your resentment is refeel. And and early on in my recovery, my brain wasn't all firing on all cylinders, and I had to build some new pathways. And this is you're looking at the result of my work in progress right now. But early on, it was like I couldn't understand why I still get angry. I thought I dealt with that now. But I can't help the emotions that pop into my head. But what I do with them, I do have control over, and I've learned that through time and experience. And intentionality.
How did you deal? Do you want to go?
No, you go.
Oh, thanks, man. Oh. How did you do?
I don't like emotion. I probably
hate
don't.
Emotion.
I
Bob doesn't suffer from this.
I'm a state board regulator. I have no emotion.
Yeah, Bob doesn't suffer from this. I just tell. I'm human. I don't know where your robot leaders dropped you off from.
I am Chat GPT. I think, but not as smart.
Part of the resentment. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I think part of the reason I struggle with relationships the most is that resentment part of it, because I have to figure out how not to sit in that negative emotion. Because you're right. So everyone's got their different lives, different spheres of influence. And I guess what it boils down to is just, it almost collects in me as anger. And I don't want to go through life as an angry person, but it's easy to fall into the trap.
I don't envision you as an angry person whatsoever. And
Good.
you keep it inside. But think about all the time you sit stewing and scheming in your anger internally. Yeah. All the moments you're cheating out of being in the present. Growing your mental capacity. Keep growing, keep learning. Find, read books, listen to podcasts, create great podcasts, create great conversations like you're doing.
We should try to create a great podcast.
We'll start tomorrow. We're going to start tomorrow.
We're just kind of fumbling along here a little bit.
The plan is there is no plan.
Technically, it's a YouTube channel, but I digress. And Brett, what I would say is what I think about as you talk about that, and to pause it a touch, I always try to look at what is the universe trying to tell me, and what is the positive that I can take out of whatever happens. If you did not go through the trials that you went through, we wouldn't be having this conversation today, frankly. Right. And you wouldn't be able to have the impact on people. I know we've had people in our YouTube audience have said they were going through the isolation of chemotherapy. They weren't connected to people. They didn't have their group of people like I had or y'all had. And she said, watching your YouTube channel helped keep me going forward.
Keep me going forward through the darkest time with my cancer.
And so you never know what you do. For you,
Continue. Sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I hate cutting you off.
Oh, she doesn't at all.
It's
But
actually my
and
favorite
I'm good.
pastime.
It is her favorite pastime. But for you to be able to share your story, for you to be able to show up to legislatures and with state board and through the ADA council work, here you can say you've lived it, and you can say, here's where I was. This is what helped me recover. This is what, frankly, didn't help me. This is what I needed, and this is what I got. But let's do better.
I love that.
Oh, thanks.
You mentioned Guatemala earlier. One of the most impactful things about Guatemala for me were the dental students who were testifying. And I was supposed to, I had just gotten out of dental school or residency. I was in my last year of residency. And when you're a resident, you're technically a dentist. So you're supposed to be a leader there, and you're not a dental student anymore. And these dental students brought so much more leadership than I could ever bring at that Guatemala trip because of their testimony, because none of them were perfect. But guess what? They were still going to be dentists. And it was the first time in my life that I realized you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have this perfect resume. And you can actually achieve anything you want in life, despite, honestly, any dip. Anything that happened, or
Right.
anything that you had, any challenge.
Almost because of that.
You're almost more likely to because of it, which was so cool.
And Guatemala hit you at a critical time,
Yeah.
I think, where you're getting ready to
It was so
graduate. And, I think it helped focus you, and you've become someone at Mission of Mercies through Texas.
I love Mission of Mercy.
You're there all the time. I just show up and smile and take
That's
pictures.
a very true story.
And I treat some people.
You treat the dental students who need a mentor.
Oh,
That's who
thank you.
treat.
Thank you.
I'd love to kind of wrap this up with some gratitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This is absolutely
This is a big
made
deal.
my week.
Yeah,
and I'm
this is a
going
big
to
deal.
do some changes.
You know what?
and
Maybe you run
this is
with
gonna
him next time.
impact.
Maybe you get up and
Dude,
you run.
I am. He's gonna lead. He's gonna be so much faster than I am because I had
Not
to lead
fast. I
that
just
a
could
little
go
bit.
far. You know, and
All
the
right.
cool thing when I go running with people, it's we get deep conversations in. It's like what we just had.
Yes.
You know.